This webinar is entitled Kid Roth. And so, we realize that most kids can't get a Roth IRA because they have no income. But this is a way that that we can get children into a tax-advantaged or maybe even tax-free savings platform that they can use throughout their life or in retirement. So why do kids care about taxes? Well, they don't. My son's 12. He doesn't really care about taxes, other than that he maybe overhears me talking about taxes to folks and probably thinks that I have an unfavorable stance on them. But why is that? Right now we're at pretty historic low tax rates, especially for folks in who are making, let's say, less than a couple $100,000 a year. But we feel like there's a big risk of taxes going back up. I mean, throughout time, taxes have been much higher than they are now. They've been low, they've been high again. I think that it's cyclical, and they're going to go back up. Think about this. We probably know people who we say they've been born with a silver spoon in their mouth because maybe their parents or their grandparents did a little bit of planning for them, or maybe they had success in life that they were able to pass along to the next generation. But that ship has sailed for me. But if I had it to do over again, I would definitely have asked my folks to put something in place for me that I could have used later on in life. And I think a lot of people are in position to do that, and they maybe just don't know that things like this are available. And if they did, they would definitely put it in place so that they had the opportunity to let that compound interest work for a very long period of time. And we're going to show you some examples in a minute of how that can be very helpful. But first, how does someone qualify for one of these plans we're talking about? Well, children don't have to qualify in the same way that adults do. As long as your child is healthy, he or she can qualify without a medical exam for the kinds of plans we're talking about doing. And this is based on a life insurance framework. So all the way out to age 16, it's not like if you were to buy a life insurance policy on yourself. These are all simplified issues. And so what is it and how does it work? Like I said, it's on a life insurance framework. We overfund or superfund it to its highest level. In other words, we're buying the least amount of insurance that the government will allow us to buy and put in the maximum amount of premium that they'll allow us to put into the policy without creating a taxable investment vehicle or a taxable asset class. So we're minimizing the mortality cost, maximizing the cash accumulation. Let's talk about that mortality expense, because this is an important component to this. Now, a lot of people have heard of life insurance retirement plans. You may have explored one for yourself, and some of you maybe already have one, and maybe you bought it from me. But have a look at this CDC mortality table. This is from back in 2005. What's important to notice about this is how level the mortality risk is from age 0 all the way out to about age 50. So in other words, someone who's 1 year old and someone who's 10 years old and someone who's 30 years old, basically all those people have the same mortality risk. The risk of your dying in that year is generally all the same. And why is that important to buying one of these policies? The important thing is that we're at a flat risk. So we know what our costs are going to be. And when we know what the costs are going to be, we're able to design a policy. We're expecting that cost to stay low for a long period of time, giving us a really long run-up period for the cash accumulation. So here's an example. And this is a real one. This is on 1 year, or she was 1 year old when she bought it, or when her parents bought it. But this is a real example of a friend of mine who bought one of these policies for his daughter. Their budget was $5,000 a year, and we're planning on putting that premium into this policy for 18 years. If they wanted to do it longer or shorter, that's fine too, but this was the plan when we put it in place back in 2015. The death benefit on this one started at $704,000, and that goes up every year with the accumulation in cash. At age 18, based on current rates, we're predicting that this policy will hold $150,000. Now, if she needs the money for college, she can use it. If she doesn't need it, she can let it go. She can let it just keep accumulating. Maybe a portion of it is needed, and in that case, you can borrow that out or take the money out, as long as it's part of those first premium payments. The cash value at age 50 is $1.4 million. Now, I mean, consider you're talking about an investment of less than $100,000, and we're at $1.4 million 50 years later, 49 years later. And if we hold it even longer to age 65, we've got $3.9 million in cash value based on its current rates of return. That's pretty incredible. That just is really a testament to what the power of compound inflation can do when you buy something like this and hold it for a really long time. Now, as I said before, this can be used as a tax-free asset class as long as we take the money back out of it the right way. And so even when we disperse that cash out at her retirement when she's 65 years old or whatever age they decide it makes sense, we should never have to pay taxes on that money. So this is one of those things where I think it makes a great deal of sense to have something like this in place, where you've got other things like IRAs where you're having to pay taxes on the gains there. So here's another example. Not everybody's budget is as robust as the last one. So, and this may not be true for adults, but for kids, based on that long level mortality risk, we can get into one of these things for less money. And so this is one that I just ran the other day, and it's on a 1-year-old male child. We're putting $100 per month premium in for 18 years. Now look how much lower the death benefit is. We adjust this down to match. So the death benefit is $137,352, and that goes up each year too. At age 18, this policy should have accumulated $33,500 that you could use at that time. At age 50, we're at $306,000. At age 65, we're at $807,000. But here's the really important part. When this kid is 65, so 64 years from now, we have that accumulation there. I went ahead and ran the annual disbursement from age 65 to 90. So you don't really just take out the $807,000 at that time. You disperse this out. So this policy can create an income of $65,000 per year, tax-free, all the way to age 90. Now, and that's based on a $100 premium per month for the first 18 years of this kid's life. That's just an incredible amount of gain for such a small outlay in those first few years. Here's some other interesting points. Now, the reason we're calling this kid Roth is kids can do a Roth. They just have to have an income. So we're not saying for you to not do a Roth IRA on your kids in lieu of one of these. We like both. But most people who don't own their own business and they don't have a way to pay their kids, you'd only really have access to the life insurance retirement plan that we were talking about before. If you can pay your kids, of course you can do the Roth though. So we talk about exit strategies for a lot of things, right? If this was your own policy, we'd talk about exit strategies being 10 years from now or 15 or 20 years from now. The same thing is available here. So if you, as a parent, and you're the owner of the policy anyway, because the kid can't enter into a contract, if you decide that you put in a fair amount of premium over a period of time, and in this example we're showing $10,000 of premium for 10 years on a 1-year-old kid, and you held that for 30 years and you decided, hey, retirement isn't looking like I was hoping, and you needed to use that to supplement your own retirement, there's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely no moral dilemma. It was your money that you put in there with the intention of giving that away. You don't have to, and I'm sure that your kid who's 30 years old at that point understands if you needed to use that as part of your own retirement. So that would create a $36,000 per year retirement supplement for you, and that would last for 20 years in that example. what is this life insurance policy? Why is it so different than what you've heard of before? Well, this is what you've heard of before. This is a Gerber quote that I pulled right off their website. And everyone who has a kid has gotten the mailers, and definitely, well, I'd say more grandparents buy this on their grandkids than parents buy on their own kids. But here's a quote for you. $50,000 of life insurance. This is a whole life policy, so very similar to what I was showing you before in design, but it's $32.60 a month. Well, you might think, well, that doesn't sound like a lot at all. But here's the truth behind this: is that is well overpriced. It's overpriced by about 5 times. In other words, I can take that $32 per month, and if we're just buying a normal life insurance policy, I can buy $250,000 of life insurance that will last forever on that same kid for that same amount. So, I mean, if you move that math to a different product, let's say you took that math and you used it on a Honda Accord, instead of paying 30 grand for it, that means you'd be paying about $150,000 for a Honda Accord, and that's the difference. You know, you think it's $32 a month, but it's 5 times overpriced. So what are the takeaways? Here are the things that you should remember. The Kid Roth structure, the life insurance retirement plan structure that we would put in place for children, is easy to qualify for. It's almost a guaranteed issue. As long as your kid isn't taking prescription medications, no one ever gets declined for it. Starting early makes just too much sense. I mean, you saw the power of compounding. You saw how, you know, under $100,000 can turn into millions and millions of dollars in retirement. And these policies work well at smaller numbers. The example where we showed $100 a month going into one of these things still creates $65,000 a year in retirement income for your children when they reach retirement age. The disbursements from these policies are tax-free. The whole reason we do these is there's a tax rate risk. We feel like taxes later are going to be higher. The deficit continues to rise. We think the way they're going to have to pay that off is to get more tax money. I don't know how it could be any different. This is more flexible than a 529 plan. Some of you might be thinking about 529. This is just entirely different product. 529 can only be used for school. That's it. This can be used for anything at any time. And of course, one exit strategy is that you can keep it if you want to. We've actually even seen people who could not qualify for one of these plans on his or her own life, put them on the life of a child. And of course, we're using this for tax advantaged nature, and it works just as well.